Hello, everyone. Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Make sure you let me know if you can hear well. I think it should be all right. There's quite a few of you here already. Uh, 51. Padenda Johnson says, you bail out everyone, you bail out no one. We all lose purchasing power. I agree. I think that's what's going to happen. The other thing as well, I'm not sure the bailouts for the big corporations, the banks, is going to work out. And why do I say that? Well, because I don't think the economies are going to pick up as quickly as the powers that be think it will. So I think it's a huge mistake. All the big fiscal and monetary stimulus that they've come up with, I think it's going to end in tears. Uh, how long it's going to take? I think it's going to take 12 months, maybe a couple of years, 1 to 2. The next couple of years, I think we will find out. So yeah, the title of the live stream is "What We Are Witnessing is the Attempt to Bail Out the Everything Bubble." And it is, I think, and they're using the crisis, the health crisis, as a cover, in my opinion. Uh, I think we can go back to last year when the repo market started malfunctioning and interest rates went up to 10%, the overnight repurchase agreement rate. And aside from the problems in the repo market and how did they evolve? I think, well, we know because the BIS put out a paper late last year saying it was a lot of hedge funds that have had were playing the basis trade in the bond markets, bond futures market. And I know that that trade. I used to be a bond futures broker, and basis trades are very simple if you do derivatives and bonds. But what they're doing is that they were leveraging to the hilt, and that's why they lost so much money. So again, derivatives are a big problem. The other thing that I've been talking about for almost 12 months, maybe longer, is the leverage loans. That's another market that's grown, mushroomed, and I think all the programs that the Fed has launched is to bail that out. Also, the fallen angels, the bonds that were very close to becoming a junk. They're just above investment grade. Those kinds of bonds, they've grown, mushroomed from 600 billion about 15 years ago to almost 4 trillion nowadays. And so they've bailed them out as well. I get comments sometimes saying, "Oh, you've been calling for collapse for ages." Well, we have the collapse right here. Uh, I guess the excuse they have it's because it's the virus, because of the virus, but it's got nothing to do with that. If our system wasn't as leveraged as it is, I think things would they probably wouldn't have done this and exaggerated it. They wouldn't have the reason to do it. So what I think is happening is they're desperate to bail out everything. So they've shut down the economies, and that's what they're doing, I think. But I don't think it's going to work because even if they reopen the economy tomorrow, uh, here in the UK, and I've seen it in the US. Maybe you can tell me. People are now scared to do things that they used to do before this started. So I'll stop talking a little bit and see if I can answer some questions. Quite a few of you here already. I'm sorry if I don't see all the questions. So we've got Ben Gray. Hi, Ben. You're not late. I only started a couple of minutes ago. Dirk Wilcox from Belgium. Beautiful day in the high plains of Texas. Yeah, the story about Hong Kong is quite interesting. What happened? It hasn't happened yet at the Communist Party conference, annual conference. They said that that's what they're thinking of doing. They're passing this national security law directly for Hong Kong, not allowing Hong Kong to do it. I think some years ago, the assembly in Hong Kong tried to pass that law, but they voted against it. Rob Heyman from Holland. Gary Robinson, have they not been printing regardless of the outcome for years, though? They have. The thing is, Gary, that when they started printing, uh, investors were hoping, and the idea was that they'd be able to unwind all the printing. That was what quantitative tightening was all about, QT. They tried that and it ended in tears. They had to reverse that last year. They started QE, which they didn't call it QE last year. And now they've doubled up. And I don't think investors are going to buy it for much longer. The other thing I think people are looking at, not just big investors, but the public in general, and especially those who are still working, who have saved, they're seeing all these people who did the wrong thing. They took on a lot of debt. They took on finance, mortgages, and also corporations. They took on a lot of debt to buy back their debt. And now they're being bailed out, and people are being paid not to go to work. And people who are working and still earning money in an honest way, they're saying, is this money really worth anything if I can sit at home and get the same amount? And I think that's going to trigger a little bit. People are going to say, I don't want to save in this money anymore because it's not worth anything. So I think you can't keep doing this forever. Uh, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are going to find out the hard way, not just individuals, but also big investors, speculators. They still believe that central banks can print money with no consequence. But yeah, that can't last forever. And I think we're near a point where we could see a crisis. UK nowhere open to spend to offload cash. No, there's still places where you can buy things in the UK. Believe me, I don't think that's right. I guess the traditional way to spend it, of course, to go on your on holidays abroad. Yeah, you can't do that, but there are other ways to spend cash. Believe me, with collectibles, with watches, fine wine. You can do a lot of damage. Precious metals, silver, gold. DMC, if you have 50,000 paper savings, 50,000 mortgage, what would you do? Um, hmm. I would pay all my debt. Maybe I would buy a bit of gold, but I would try to really get rid of all my debt. Yeah, maybe pay 40,000 off the mortgage and take 10,000 and buy some gold and silver. That's what I would do. I don't think I'm not sure if Hertz is getting a bailout. They've declared bankruptcy, and I've seen in the states that they've got a lot of their cars for sale. West Coast from Scotland. Hello, West Coast. Deal when Robert's still at home being paid. Yeah, and the problem is that a lot of people are realizing that it makes more sense to stay at home, and some people are getting paid even more than they used to get paid because they're getting yeah, these paychecks. But also, even if you only get 80% of your salary and you're at home, uh, yeah, you don't have as many expenses. The other thing I would say, though, a lot of this furlough and also the deferment of mortgages and finance, that's going to come and catch up with people. People. I was reading that in the UK they're asking for the extension of the relief for car finance. The forbearance, but it's only going to that doesn't mean they're writing off the debt. So when people lose, when that stops, and if people can't find jobs anymore, uh, eventually all these this credit is going to collapse, in my opinion. Same thing with mortgages. I mean, people before the crisis, they're already struggling, I would say, on a month basis. Now when these plans end, and if people don't get jobs, or if they do get a job but they get less pay, they're going to be even more hard up. I think there's going to be a lot of mortgage failures, a lot of financing failures as well. Girl OG, hi Girl OG. Tomorrow I'm going to sell 2 ounces of gold to buy a veteran car, Opel and Ascona. Why not? Classic cars. Yeah, and if you're into cars, that's fine. Everyone has their different things that they're into. The a few weeks ago here on the live stream, I was told by one of you guys that I had some Hive coin, which I didn't even know I had. And at that time, Hive like had ballooned from 20 cents to like almost $1. And I saw that, and I actually sold some of it, and I bought some fine wine with it. And now I see that Hive is down to like 28 cents. So I'm glad I did that. I was I wasn't like trying to trade, but it turned out that it was a good time to sell that. Catman734, what's your opinion on getting a student loan to retrain? You only pay back when you're earning above. Yeah, yeah. I mean that. Why not? I not. You don't unless you start working. I guess it does. It doesn't accumulate, does it? It doesn't unless you're working. If you're not working, it doesn't grow. So why not? But you can learn a lot of things on free courses as well online. Open University as well. That's free, but it's up to you. Zenor Man, thank you for the super chat donation. That is slavery. That's right. Never a borrower or lender be. Um, I know a lot of people would argue, yeah, I do need debt, but maybe instead of taking finance to go to university, start working and saving and then go to university, or do it both at the same time. I know it's hard to get a job right now, but I've got one of my mugs here. Only physical gold and silver will slay the bullion banks. That's one of the ones I have. And I think one of you told me I should do a mug that don't feed the Fed. I think it was Pablo Pina. I'm not sure. Well, I've done one. I think it was a couple of days ago. I designed one. Is don't feed the creature, buy gold and silver. So I'll put a link here. See if any of you are interested. There's the new mug. Uh, don't feed the creature, and the creature, of course, is the creature from Jekyll Island. It's got a photo of the New York, not the New York Fed, the Federal Reserve head office in Washington D.C. Graham Hobbs says, "Come on, hit the like button." 96 likes. Louis Louis the Third, Dominican Republic. Do you think they may be successful in delaying the pop of the everything bubble? Yeah, they could. They are destroying not just the dollar, but also all the other fiat currencies. They could, uh, yeah, they could do that. The destruction of the dollar and other fiat currencies. And by that I mean, if gold goes to like 5, 6 thousand in the next year, that's really a bad sign for all paper currencies. It's good for us, of course, but that's uh that's the implosion of the everything bubble as well. What is your opinion of all these different banks and big investors getting into Bitcoin? Uh, yeah, I mean, there a lot of people think that's a good sign. I think cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, blockchain, they have a future, but they're very volatile. Probably not a bad sign, I guess, for those who are into cryptocurrency. Um, The thing about cryptocurrencies, I've been involved, and there's so many different altcoins. You need to really stay on top of it 24/7 because it changes very quickly. You saw that I didn't even know I had those Hive coins, and yeah, and how quickly they move. What it means? Well, it's not a good sign for me that the bankers are getting involved. They're going to corrupt, I think, the cryptocurrencies, and that's why I stick more to precious metals because that at least it's a private thing. The blockchain is not private unless you have Monero. Everyone can see what you're doing. So, do you really want the bankers to know what you're doing? So, I don't like it. I don't like it. Yeah, you might make a lot of money being in it, but that's for you to decide. Full of hope. Thank you for the super chat. Leo Gantz says reset gold to tier one doubled. Um, yeah, I haven't looked at that. I don't know if he's talking about the BIS, the Basel rules or Basel 3. But you see, tier one just means that gold is seen as a reserve asset by banks. But, the price of gold still fluctuates. Satoshi selling his position. I saw that story. I don't know how people can know if he's selling it if no one knows who he is. Maybe there is a big seller there of. Uh, I think they're speculating that it's him or her. It could be a her. Satoshi could be a her. Global Observer, BOE will not release gold to Venezuela. Yeah, I think that's really bad. It's bad for the reputation of London as a financial center. And I saw a story on RT the other day. The Venezuelan government is recognized as the sovereign government, by the UN. So by doing that, the UK is actually breaking international law. So that's really bad. Yeah, I think they should let them have their gold. Guaido is not a recognized leader of anywhere. And you might not like, the regime in Venezuela, but it is their gold. The Bank of England let the Nazis take the gold away from Czechoslovakia when they invaded in 1938. So it looks like the Bank of England is okay dealing with Nazis, but not with Chavez in Venezuela. Do you think the Fed can keep the stock market at these levels? Dave Humphreys. Well, I was just looking a few weeks ago. I did, well, a couple of months ago, I spoke about compare the stock market move in 29 and what it's doing now. And I said at the time, it was right after the bottom, uh, March 23rd. I said we could now rebound and we could, 24,000 would be a big resistance. We could go a little higher or a little lower, and that it would take 13 weeks maybe to before it went back down. And right now, we just finished week 9, and we've been going sideways in the stock market basically for the last 6 weeks. So I think we could see the stock market go sideways for another 4 weeks. Where did I get the 13 weeks? Well, I extrapolated how long it took for the Dow to bottom in November 1929 until it topped in April or May before it went back down in 1930. And as the move down this time has been so much quicker, I calculated that it would take less than from November to April. So that was about 13 weeks. It could be less, who knows? But yeah, I think we could still see another few weeks of sideways trading in the stock market. And then I expect it to go back down. Not sure if it's going to be a huge crash, but it will go back down, I think, and retest the lows. Time wise, I'm not sure. High metallic miner, we've been on for about 8 to 20 minutes. I usually do an hour, so you've got plenty of time. Silver gold ratio, yeah, that is tested. We went below 100 this week. Uh, and then towards the end of the week, we saw silver get hit. We're pretty close to that 100 level. I think there might be a little more of a little battle there between the 100, but I think the gold silver ratio definitely looks like it's going to go lower. So that would mean that silver would should continue to outperform. Hi SW. Sorry I didn't see you earlier. Bail in. There be three. Uh, the thing is, they're bailing out all the banks already and everything. So no, I don't think there will be bail-ins. But what will happen is that the currency is gonna. What you're gonna get is a currency crisis by saving all the banks, doing whatever it takes. So yeah, you might have 200,000 pounds in the bank, and the bank will stay open. But in 2 years' time, that 200,000 pounds will buy a quarter of the gold that you could buy now. That's how they're going to do it because they're going to print so much. So I don't think there's a danger of a bail-in, but the only problem is that that money or currency that you leave in the bank is going to become worth a lot less in terms of purchasing power. Why do central bankers think that negative rates will work? Well, because they're desperate for people to spend money because people, the economies are slowing down. I think they realize it doesn't work. And the other thing as well, they want to keep government solvent. That's the thing, because if interest rates start going up, um, with all the debt that's been created, especially in the last few months, that would be disastrous for governments. So, and the other thing as well, by central banks like the Fed and the Bank of England coming out and saying they're going to do anything it takes, speculators, they start buying the bonds. They drive the rates to negative. The market does that as well, and sometimes the central bankers just follow the market, but they've only got themselves to blame with this policy of forward guidance. They keep telling the markets that they don't want rates up anytime soon. And I don't think they can keep doing that forever. When they did QE in '08, they started out '08, '09. People questioned whether that would be the right thing, but they were guaranteed, by people like Bernanke. Oh, if we get inflation, we'll just raise rates in 15 minutes and everything will be fine. But now we know that that doesn't work. And also, Yellen said quantitative tightening or reversing QE would be like watching paint dry. So I think people are they're losing their credibility, central bankers. They're also becoming less and less independent. So I don't think the fiat currencies are going to do well at all. June 1776. Mario, does anyone know, including central bankers, know what the hell they're doing or what is going to happen? Uh, I don't think so. June 12th. But the only thing we know, though, that they're doing, not that they know what they're doing, is that they're creating a lot of this funny money, and it can only end in tears when you do that. Yeah, I don't profess to know exactly what's going to happen, but I don't think it's good what's going to happen. Grow mechanic. I'm waiting for central banks to buy Bitcoin. Okay. Uh, Rob says the gold, the Fed's book is at it's $42.22, I think. Yeah. They priced Basel. I don't think that's the Treasury gold. It's in the books of the United States, Treasury and Congress. The official Treasury price is 42 and 22. I don't think it's got to do anything with the Basel three. This is more to do with the U.S. International gold is the spot price. Um, yeah, they can rebalance the books if they jack up the price, the official price, Treasury price to 10,000. There wouldn't be a problem. Um, the thing is that would create a lot of inflation right away, but, and that's what they want. Maybe they will do it. Who knows? They do want inflation, sack media. That's right. Monero, I the only thing I know about Monero, I have had some Monero in the past. It is that it's private, very private. No one knows that you have it. But the thing is, yeah. So that's what I know about Monero. I mean, Jeff Berwick has been talking about Monero quite a bit. How many languages do I speak? Well, my mother tongue is Brazilian Portuguese. I speak French, uh, Italian, English, and a bit of German. So five. Pablo Pina, Jim Rickards mentions there can be an overnight meeting and the next day gold at 10,000. That's possible as well. A weekend reset, but that would have to probably be done with other countries involved, maybe, or the U.S. could do it on its own. Physical gold shorted at the LBMA. Um, well, the LBMA basically is an association. I think there's 5,000 tons at the Bank of England. They hold it for other central banks. The UK only has 300 tons. So the Bank of England works together with the LBMA, and they lease a lot of the gold out to the bullion banks. So it's difficult to say if there's a shortage unless people demand the physical. So, but we've seen that on Comex, there seems to be not as much gold as they say, but usually the Comex, people hardly ever ask for delivery. But now with the crisis, uh, it seems like a lot of people who are never get involved in gold actually going to the Comex because they see it's a physical market supposedly, and they're actually asking for delivery. So that's where the problem is, I think, on Comex, because Comex and LBMA work together. The bullion banks, they use those two markets to manipulate the price. Johnny, yeah, I think especially if you have extra fiat currency, fiat money, I would be trying to get gold and silver. Yeah, I've been doing it for years because I know that paper money always goes to zero, always, and it's not going to be different this time. Yeah, I agree. June 1776, central banking is really bad news. Um, the U.S. didn't have a central bank from I think 1836 to 1914, and it did okay. Um, yeah, um, yeah. Central banking is overrated. It does. We should have a free market in money, just like we should have a free market in everything, even though right now we don't seem to have a free market in anything because the central banks are buying everything to provide liquidity. But the best thing to that could happen is for everything to collapse, for people. And how would that happen? Well, the investors who still have a lot of assets, they lose confidence and they just sell everything, and the central banks are left holding the bag. That would be the best thing that could happen. Yeah, metallic miner. That hopefully they won't, be the owner of everything. Gold is money, currency is paper. Well, gold can be currency as well. Gold coins, silver coins, they're currency. Gold is money and currency at the same time. But then Alison McLeod, he's a guy who usually doesn't, sorry, make those kinds of predictions. That's why when he said that, I thought, wow, this is interesting. Gold preserves your wealth, silver to a lesser extent, but silver offers great investment opportunity. Yeah, silver is always good to have. It's not expensive and it's something you can just put aside and not worry about. That's the way I feel about silver. I don't care if it goes down to $10 or 100, even though I might unwind some at 100. But yeah, gold is a little different. Gold is a better store of wealth, like No said. I agree with him. Next crash, stock market, Sasha. Sorry, I was talking that I think we could go sideways for another 4 weeks, and then we could see the market go back down. Not sure it's going to crash, but I think we will see new lows eventually in the next 12 to 18 months. Some people are calling for the Dow to go to 5,000. Some think it's going to go to 15,000. We'll have to wait and see. I think we're getting the collapse already, Anthony. You know, uh, Yesterday's paper says worst economic data in history. If that's not a collapse, I don't know what is. The only reason the stock market is still quite elevated is that they've pumped a lot of money into the system, or they've promised to pump money, and people have just gone in and bought. But I think they need to be careful. If you look back in 1929, uh, the market first crash was in October to early November. And then from November to April, it rallied. I'm sure a lot of people thought the same thing. Oh, this crash is over. Everything's fine now. And then it just like tumbled again and it bottomed in 32, dropped 90%. And I think that's the kind of market we're in right now. And people forget that actually the Fed cut rates quite a bit in the late 20s after the crash and early 30s. And yeah, people, we usually told by people like Ben Bernanke that the Fed didn't do enough, but they did cut rates from about 6%, the discount rate, I think in 1929, to about 1.5% by 1932. So they did quite a bit as well, and it didn't work. Tony Cardoza, why do you think the Fed does not print enough money and buy all the gold and silver in the world. Hmm. Well, because they'd have to pay a huge price for to do that, and they would totally destroy the dollar or their Federal Reserve note. That's why. And I think they'd rather just print the Federal Reserve notes and not have to get gold with it. That would also, that would get everyone would get rid of, because what that means is they're getting rid of their own paper to get gold. So that would trigger a run out of the Federal Reserve note because it's not really a dollar, and that would be they would destroy their own paper. They might have to though by quite a bit if people start losing confidence in their paper. And why would they do that? Well, to balance the books, as Jim Sinclair has said, gold is used to balance books amongst countries. That's how they do it. That's why uh, sovereign countries still hold 33,000 tons of gold. Hertz has to sell more than 30,000 autos a month. I saw that. They've got I went to their website. It's you know, I can't I don't know if they're going to sell some here in the UK, but they've got a lot of cars for sale. Yeah, dollar is a weight of silver, and it's also well, originally it was from Bohemia, Thaler. Uh, you see, that's a Thaler there. There you go. That's a dollar, but it's called a Maria Theresian Thaler. It's an Austrian dollar. Yeah, gold is the ultimate. It is the only extinguisher. That silver as well. You can pay that with silver. Yeah, the Federal Reserve note, but Bank of England note, they're just promises to pay in gold or silver, but you can't. It doesn't. They don't do it anymore, but they pretend it's a note, a promissory note, but it's a promissory note on nothing. The euro doesn't even say it's a promise. The euro note is not even a note. It's just a piece of paper with the word ECB on it and the number. So at least they don't try to pretend to be a note. Dimes. I have some 1964 and before dimes. They're nice coins. They're a little bit like the. Oh, here's some. There's some. That's a 1964 dime. They're a little bit like the sixpence in the UK. See, that's a silver sixpence. Is a little bigger than the dime, but it's similar. Yeah, they are metallic minor. I have called the Bank of England before and asked them, why do you promise someone to pay why does your chief cashier promise to pay £20? What is it? £20 of what? And they said, oh, all that means is that you can bring in an old note and get a new note. And I said, why don't you write that then? If this note is damaged, you can come and get another one. So it is a complete fraud. Uh, but if you try to call the serious fraud office to tell them that, they will laugh in your face because it's the Bank of England. Yeah, they are debt instruments, and they're backed by the U.S. Treasury debt, Federal Reserve note. Uh, Professor Rogers or Prof. Rogers, I think As gold is the ultimate yardstick of value, is the best store of value, and it's been money for thousands of years. The reset or correction, it's a correction as well, has been happening, in my opinion, since 2000. That's when the Dow Gold ratio reached around 42 or so, and it's been going down ever since. Uh, every time the the dollar drops against gold, it's a reset. Every time any fiat currency drops against gold, it's a reset. I mean, you look at the inflation calculator from the Bank of England from 1821, when England went back on the gold standard after the Napoleonic Wars, to 1914. The change in CPI per annum in those almost 100 years was minus zero point 0.1. So you had sound money then. So you don't have that anymore. So there was no reset then. It was stable for 100 years almost, the value of the currency uh, in terms of purchasing power. Nowadays, it's resetting every day in the fiat money system. Yeah, we could see an acceleration of the reset. I think it's going to come before 2030. Uh, Thank you, June 12th, 1776, for your 1776 donation. Um, Good knowledge here. Mario knows money. Thank you. Is that your, what's the June 12th, 1776? Is that when one of the first colonies decided to, because we know July 4th, but is there some particular thing about the date, the June 12th? Cash is king and gold is the real money in my piggy bank. Well, actually, technically, when you had a sound money system and you had banknotes that were backed by gold or silver, the cash was not, the cash was actually gold and silver or specie. The what we call now cash was actually just a note. So that's the other thing that people get confused. They call cash or the note, they call the note cash, but technically cash is gold and silver or specie. Oh, Battle of Saratoga, June 12th. Okay. 1776. Professor Rogers. Saratoga, New York. Yeah. Uh, yeah, Tom Joad, I actually, that's interesting you asked that. I did buy some Jim Sinclair's company a couple of weeks ago, 10 range, Tanzanian royalty. And I am thinking of getting some. I've done a little bit of research. I look at the Sprott Gold Equity Fund, and also the Peter Schiff Euro Pacific Capital Gold Fund at their holdings, and they've got a lot of holdings, different companies. But and I've decided just to buy the GDXJ and also GDX. I think I'm going to buy a bit of those, so the ETF or fund, because it's easier to do it like that. So yeah, I think I'm not gonna put a lot in there percentage wise, because I think you can do really well just putting a little bit. So yeah, I think it's a good time to get involved. Of course, it's very volatile. George Assad, will central banks buy in all the public gold? Well, I think they'd have to buy it at a very high price. If they came tomorrow, and well, tomorrow is a bank holiday here, and I think it's a holiday in the States. Be a bit quiet, but if they came and said, "We'll give you $50,000 for your gold," Um, I might sell a little bit, not all of it, because I don't trust them. So it all depends on the price. George Mason was the author of the Virginia Bill of Rights. Robert Hollyoak thinks debt is king. I thought that was the money of slaves, Robert. 20,000 per ounce. You know, the problem, George, is if we get a loss of confidence or hyperinflation, in Venezuela, I think Bellin GP did a video a few years ago, and he followed the price of gold in bolivars, and he was showing how at one point it tried to go above 14,000 and it dropped back to 12. Can you imagine if at the time you thought, oh, gold is going to collapse in Bolivar and you sold it, but now it's like 300 million. So, unless you really need the fiat, I would hold on to it. It's more like savings. Written June 12th, 1776. Oh, the Virginia Bill of Rights. Okay, good. Yeah, Virginia is a very important state. Um, it was, well, really dominant politically, wasn't it, in the beginning of the United States of America, Virginia? It's a bank holiday here in the UK. Yeah, Ben. Not that it matters that much these days. And I think it's in the US, it's a holiday. Is it Memorial Day in the US? Brent Johnson, why is he wrong? Well, because he's looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, the dollar might be relatively strong against the other fiat currencies, but if you look at gold, it topped at well, when the dollar index bottomed in 2008, it was at 70, and now it's around 98. But gold at the time was at 1,000, and you'd think that gold would be down now, the dollar index going up, but gold's at 1,700. So yeah, you can play around with the fiat currencies, and the dollar might still be doing well. But I agree with Peter Schiff. The dollar is going to take a big hit, even against the other fiat currencies. And when it does that, gold will go up even quicker than it's going up now. So yeah, I think people should think of. I think the gold milkshake theory is a lot better than the dollar milkshake. I'd rather have a gold milkshake than a dollar milkshake. Peter Richard, yeah, bank permanent holiday. No, it's just that here in the UK they call every holiday a bank holiday except for Christmas. I don't know why. Uh, M. Emlo Aureus Scrivener has gold and is gonna start looking at silver. Why not? You're right, Michael. Dollar might be last fiat to fall, but it will fall. There's never been a fiat currency that's ever survived long term. Gold has been around and silver for, and they've kept their purchasing power for thousands of years. Yeah, Billy, he likes silver milkshake. That's right. Maybe that should be a T-shirt. Billy Silver Milkshake. Michael Favel, is that how you pronounce it? Had Victoria Day last weekend. Gloria Menendez, I don't know what that little hand means. Lord Humong is a bank holiday, so the banks need a break to stop abroad. Yeah, they need to rest from all the uh, nefarious activity. Yeah, AMLA Oreos. I think people should try to keep as little of their wealth or money, if you want to call it, in the bank. Basically, you're lending them money by keeping your money in the bank. It's an unsecured loan. That's why I did that T-shirt, not the T-shirt, but the here's the that's the new mug. Don't feed the creature. Buy gold and silver. You see, so that's why I did that new mug. Someone said, "Do a mug. Don't feed the Fed." So I did. Don't feed the creature. Creature from Jekyll Island. MMNO says you can drink Goldschlager alcohol. I saw when I went to Florence last October, there was a Hard Rock Cafe over there, and they had a cheeseburger that had a little thin sheet of gold on it, so you could eat gold uh, with your cheeseburger. Monaco 64 silver rounds. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I think there is a private mint here in the UK that does that. Have to see if it's worth doing it. What country has the most gold, Paul N? Well, officially it's the U.S. They've got the government, not the public. I would say the country that has the most gold is India because the Indian public owns a lot of gold. I think the German public own a lot of gold as well, but officially for the government or the state, it's the U.S. The U.S. has got just over 8,000 metric tons supposedly. Um, Bell and GP has done a video recently saying that they have done audits of all the gold. So there you go. Vatican probably has a lot of gold as well. Vatican is the oldest legal institution in the world, I would say. Hi, John DeGlass. Uh, yeah, Sasha B. I would say the Swiss franc is just very similar to the dollar. The Swiss franc just made a new low versus gold recently. So actually, yeah, the dollar is still holding on. But yeah, if you were gonna hold a fiat currency, Swiss franc, but be careful because there are negative interest rates in Switzerland. So if you have a bank account in Switzerland and you've got a lot of Swiss francs, they might start taking money away from your account. I think the Indians have more gold. Sac Media one. Uh, the public, even though the Chinese public have been encouraged to buy gold the last decade. The suppose the Chinese government has actually encouraged the public to buy gold, which is something they don't do here in the West. Yeah, Canada. Well, I think everyone that is probably most of the people on this live stream have more gold than the Canadian government. They have zero. It's not hard, is it? If you have a wedding ring, you've got more gold than Canada. If your wedding ring is a gold ring. GLD, I think, Paul, yeah, they are the custodian for GLD. I don't know about GDX. Um, George Assad says Vatican owns the UK. Well, it's funny because when you walk outside the Bank of England, there's a part of outside where you go under like a it's like an arc, and there's like a hole. It's in the corner of Lothbury and I think um, is it King William Street? I don't know, but and you go under there. It was built in the 1920s, and there is the on the Bank of England building. There's a SPQR, Senatus Popularis Romano. That they actually have that on the Bank of England building, SPQR, the Roman seal. So you could be right. Typical Brian, thank you for the super chat, 10 Canadian dollars. He says, I love gold. So you must have more gold than your government. It's interesting. Oh, here we go. Would you invest in pawnbrokers? No, no, don't invest in pawnbrokers. I invested, I bought a pawnbroking business in 2012. Don't do it. Uh, Maybe I was too early. Maybe it could be a good business, but only when the whole credit system collapses. Yeah, wait for the collapse. Don't go before because people are still getting credit. When they can't get credit from the financial system, maybe it will work, the pawnbroking business. You got to be careful with it. There's a lot of scammers, a lot of people trying to take advantage of you. So, and the other problem with pawnbroking, you need to have a physical shop, and that's expensive. Even though a lot of the rents might come down and the business rates, but here in the UK, yeah. So I've done it, and it wasn't bad, but it just doesn't make enough money. Uh-huh. Mr. Fidapable, porn shop better, probably. Yeah, the corner shops are doing very well. There's one near where I live. It's really busy. They've been really busy. Quit addiction. Should UK hand over all the gold it stole from India? Well, I mean, the story about the UK relationship with India is that before the 1840s, uh, it was the East India Company that was doing business in India. And I think the deal, what they did in India, don't know if they stole the gold, but the Indians paid a lot more for silver. So what the East India Company got the UK to do, because you couldn't export silver from the UK prior to 1666. So they got Parliament to allow them to export. So what they did, they took all the silver and sold it for a big profit in India, and the Indians paid them with gold. So that's how they did it. So I'm not sure. I don't know about the UK actually stealing the gold. We could say in the UK that India stole our silver as well. So and I think India has a lot more gold than the UK anyway. The UK only has 300 tons. India probably has thousands of tons. So yeah, it was the East India Company that was more involved in India. It was only, I think, after 1840s that Queen Victoria actually became the Empress of India. Before, there was just a business relationship. East India Company was just like a big corporation. Robert Kiyosaki new book called Fake. I contacted his website weeks ago, asking for an interview, but I haven't heard back. Yeah, I think the crack up boom has started. Emla Emla Oreos. uh, Metallic miner paper money stole India's wealth and everyone else's, right? Paper money has been stealing the wealth in Brazil for for ages, stealing the wealth in Venezuela. It's been stealing the wealth in the U.S. everywhere for the last 100 years. Ricardo Torres says Trump is spending the Federal Reserve cash, then he's going to goats. And yeah, I actually think that's what they're trying to do. This is what we're going through now is like a bankruptcy. And that's why they've had to do the lockdown. They have to keep people from doing things. Um, yeah, it could be that. It's hard to say. One thing for sure is that gold will become important again. And that's why I think you need to have some. And yeah, yeah, Robert Holyoke. Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki. He said he started buying gold and silver when he was in Vietnam. But I'm not really. I don't like his strategy of using debt, and he might have done well from it, but that's not in my nature. So I don't think it's for everyone. Yeah, Gary Robinson. I think, and people say that the England's taking things, but you know, I'm from Brazil originally, and I read a book about Brazil because it only became independent in 1822 from Portugal. In 1808, I think it was, the royal family of Portugal fled from Portugal because they were scared of Napoleon coming over. So they took the whole Portuguese royal court. They decided to get on ships and go down to Brazil and make Rio the capital of the Portuguese Empire. But guess who escorted the Portuguese royal family and the whole Portuguese court? Dozens of ships. It was the Royal Navy. So, um, yeah, so the British got a good deal with the Portuguese royal family that they were allowed to do business with Brazil. Prior to that, Brazil, the colonies in Brazil, they could only do trade with Portugal. So, yeah, and people might say, "Oh, the British went to Brazil and they raped it." But no, they did a deal with the Portuguese royal family and they said you can come and also trade in Brazil. So, and people forget as well that yeah, the British would buy raw materials from other countries and then they would bring it back to England and process it, the Industrial Revolution, and sell it to other people, yeah, at a profit, because they've done something valuable as well. And I'm not saying the British were perfect, but like you said, countries invade and attack other countries. It's not just one country. So yeah, Xavier Ramos, thank you for the super chat. uh, from California. Thank you for the content. You're welcome. I've gone on a little longer today, but I'll stay on a little more, do a little longer. Uh, Lord Rothschild is Satan. Lord Humongous. Jacob Rothschild, yeah. Hmm. Not sure. You know, I try not to get personal. I know the Rothschilds are very powerful, family. Oreos, Scrivener. I'm your youngest viewer. I'm 12 years old. They don't teach me this at school. No, they didn't teach me this at school either. So no gold from it's too expensive, I guess, to mine from space. Unless the price goes up a lot, it might become economical. MJQ, did I watch George Gammon yesterday? No, I don't really follow George Gammon that much. My wife used to watch him a bit. I try, because George Gammon, he hasn't been around that long in this kind of alternative space. Uh, I know he's got a lot of subscribers, but he only started like about 9 months ago. And I try to just, it's like when you play golf and you have your golf swing. Yeah, you do watch golf, but you can't try to you try to keep away from imitating people. So yeah, I don't watch other people that much. People that do talk about similar things to what I talk to. So I didn't haven't watched him. All right, I'll take a few more questions, then I'll call it a night here in the UK. Yeah, I know Adrian Day. He's well known in the gold mining. He does manage Peter Schiff's fund. Yeah. Crack up boom. The theory. Uh, Yeah, that basically it's when people realize that the debt that the fiat currency that will never be paid ever because there's so much of it that they lose confidence in it. So what happens is that the demand for money plummets, and that means that people don't want to hold it anymore. So they try to get anything they can for that money, and that the value of the money collapses and the value of everything else that's value has some value relative to the money you know uh, goes up. And the crack up boom, yeah, that's when you've had a very long period of credit creation and when people realize that. Thank you, June 12th. House mortgages, yeah. I think a lot of people are going to go have negative equity again, so the value of their house is going to be worth more than the less than the mortgage. But they could keep it going for a little longer. They're talking about negative interest rates here in the UK. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good Memorial Day if you're in the US, a good bank holiday if you're in the UK, and take care.